Hello and welcome to Anything But Ordinary with Spooky and Raven. Tonight's topic, shadow people. I am your host, Spooky, along with your other host, the awesome Miss Raven.
Hey, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing a lot better.
Yeah. Sorry, guys, that we had to postpone the show. Spooky was sick for a while, and I had some issues too, so we just had to postpone the show, but we're happy we're able to do it tonight, though, for sure.
Oh, for sure. Of all things, I came down with strep throat.
Yeah. I had that the week before, remember? So.
Yeah, that's it. I got it from you.
Yeah, we're not even in the same state. It's impossible. Anyway, tonight's topic was another viewer's request, so we were kind of happy to try this one out tonight,
Yeah, like we said before, we enjoy getting viewer requests, and we do try to get to them just as soon as we can.
Yeah.
So if we're a little slow getting to yours, just bear with us. We will eventually get to it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, tonight, when it comes to this topic, there's really, no way for a person to say, exactly what it is, that hundreds to thousands of people are actually encountering or experiencing when it comes to these shadow entities. You know what I mean? Because there's people all across this planet that have, in one way or another, experienced something they can't explain it, And it's not just a one-time deal for some people. Some people are seeing these things daily or sometimes weekly, And me and you always, tend to say this a lot, on our show because we don't consider ourselves experts.
Right.
Nor do we ever claim to be when we talk about the paranormal or, really any other subject we do a show on. It's just things that we find interesting. We read about it just like everybody else is. We have encounters. We get curious. We, banter with other people or we look up, the topic and stuff and just try to figure out, what is this or what is that. But, I honestly wouldn't believe anyone if they said they were an expert because no one can really, you really can't be, that you can have ideas, you can have opinions, you can have your theories, but there is really no solid proof that, yes, these shadow people or these shadow entities are this or that. You can't really narrow them down to just one thing.
Right. And there's been times that we've done shows on things that I was on the fence about or kind of skeptical about, but after doing our research and everything, sometimes it's changed my mind, to one way or another. But it's like you said, we're not experts.
No. But, when we were doing our research, I know I did, and I'm sure you did too. We came across tons and tons of websites and videos, and there's a lot of books out there. You name it. Each of these are all ranging in their own, belief or their theory to what these things are. And tonight, I think what me and you are going to kind of do for our viewer who requested this is we're going to share our own experiences when it comes to these shadow entities, as well as, some of the things that we found on the internet, other people's encounters. And then, we're going to, of course, talk about the different theories and the thoughts that people have when it comes to these encounters. And basically, we're just going to let you, our viewers, decide for yourself at the end, because we're not here to push one way or the other, believe this way, this is exactly what they are. We're just going to kind of throw a little bit of everything out there and, just, show all the cards that we know that we found on it. You know what I mean?
True. Now, some say that shadow beings are a new thing that's been occurring, while others say it's been happening for far, far longer.
Right. I think the reason why people think it's like this huge phenomenon that's just happening right now is just because of the internet. Because of the internet, people have the means to share their encounters and seek out other people throughout the whole world, So it's more known now than it was back then, because back then you didn't have the internet to spread, like foxfires,
Yeah, and if you look back throughout history in other cultures, they have spoken about these strange entities or shadow beings. Like the Greeks called them shades.
Yeah.
And according to their definition, a shade was that of a spirit or a ghost of someone who passed away and was from the underworld.
Yes.
The Hebrew Bible talks about the Sheol, which is a place where people go when they die, which is a place of darkness away from God, and that the shades inhabit this realm. Romans talk about Umbra. Egyptians called the shadow, I'm going to butcher this word, Kayabut, which is just one of 7 soul parts that each person has.
Well, the Egyptians have, they have the Book of the Dead, and they have their spells and stuff where they prepare the body and the spirit for the afterlife and stuff, and they talk about, a person having like 7 soul parts or spirit parts or whatever, and they do talk about the Kayabut, and that being part of, they say that the shadow part of the person or whatever. But, Native Americans, I was reading a lot of things about that, where they have their own stories about these shadow entities or shadow stalkers, or, they had a lot of them, because each tribe has like their own name for these beings,
Well, for instance, the Choctaws talked about the Nalusa Cheeto, which translates to soul eaters.
Yeah. I was reading a lot about that too, which made me think of like the Wendigo. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Too, but like literally in almost every culture, when we were reading stuff, you'll find it all around the world. You have these stories that we were coming on. We were reading about the folklore of these entities throughout history. But from what I was reading, it seems that really there's no one really truly knows what they are, or where they come from, or what their true intentions are, if they even have any intentions, And I think, like, almost, when I was doing this, I can look back at almost every show that we've done, right? Pertaining to haunted places, the forest, the castle shows we've done, to, like, haunted states, and, like, how, all that stuff. Me and you have literally talked about tons of places where people are encountering some form of these shadow entities. Now, some of them were a friendly type of encounter, while other ones were like totally negative.
Right, and well, we also had a guest come on our show and share their encounters with paranormal, and a few of them spoke of seeing shadow beings.
Yeah.
Now we had this one guest come on our show. He had personal experiences, like from the Myrtles plantation, and he even shared a video of a shadow person with us.
Oh, yeah, that was Laces Out. He and a few of his family members were doing a bit of like a paranormal investigation at the Myrtle plantation, and they had like this camera set up facing, it was like in this room, I can't remember which room it was, but it's on the show that we have, and we'll post the link later in the podcast so you guys can go check it out. But it was facing this outside door, and in the video, this dark, solid black shadow entity, kind of looked like the shape of a person, actually, a really tall person, I should say. It went from the right to the left, and it crossed on the porch, which the porch was lit up, and so was the room that the camera was in. So you could see this thing, and you could tell it wasn't somebody in the house, but this shadow entity from the Myrtle plantation walked across on the front porch in front of those doors, and you could see, the upper torso of this through the glass windows of that door. And, we have that video on one of those podcasts that we have, but we couldn't share the video tonight because of, couldn't get...
Well, we didn't have permission.
Well, from the other, we didn't connect with the other people from the investigation, but we do have other things that we're sharing tonight anyway. But as far as that video, we'll have to just, check out our show or something.
We will post a link to that podcast so you guys can go back and check out the video in our references tonight. But I found it interesting that, like she said, that shadow was walking back and forth like it was pacing. But what about those 2 that came right through the window?
Oh,
I mean, I know. It was just an awesome video.
Right, I forgot about that. Yeah, for sure. We're going to have to post that link. I wish we could have showed it today, but we didn't be able to connect with everybody, and we just, wanted to be polite or whatever. But, even though he was there and stuff, but we do have other things we're going to share tonight of some photos of a shadow entity. But there was another time that he did call in, remember, where he shared some of his encounters when he was on the Queen Mary. And that's the photo that we're going to be sharing tonight, because actually when he was down in the engine room, he was like taking pictures and stuff when he was on a tour, and he ended up snapping a photo of a shadow man down there.
Right.
You know?
Right. Great photo.
Yeah.
That was a great capture.
Yeah, we're gonna be showing that here in a little bit. But okay, there's, like we were talking, there's like all these people who are seeing different types of these shadow entities. Now, many people are always talking about these different types, and not everybody's seeing the same thing, because I think there's like this wide range of these shadow entities, and each of them, I can only assume, have like their own agenda or their own ability, and you know, not all of them are the same, nor should they be classified as such. You know, not everything should be classified as, you know, this is this type of shadow. They're all shadow
Right.
people, because I don't really think that they are humans per se, maybe not all of them. And you know, I read like hundreds of different people's encounters, you know, while we were researching this for weeks with things, and I myself have had several encounters throughout my whole life, and not just with one kind of shadow entity either. I mean, I've seen a wide variety of them, but I was also fully awake. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't, you know, half asleep and just woke up, or just going to sleep, or any of that stuff. I was like fully awake when I was having or seeing these things, and it wasn't just in one area, it was in multiple places, you know. Hello? Hi. I hope I didn't lose Spooky again. Spooky, I think you're muted. Shows she's still in the Skype call. Let's see. Sorry guys, hold on a second. Hello, Spooky. Oh, hold on a second. I think we lost Spooky. Let me see if I can try to get her back, guys. Just hang on a second. This is what happened, I think, at the last show. Whenever we do, like, shows of, like, poltergeists or shadow entities or something, she disappears. So, I'll see if I can get her back. Sorry, guys. I think she might just have to bless her house when we end up doing these shows or whatever. Anyway, I'll kind of banter on a little bit. Hopefully she'll be able to get back on the internet. Maybe the shadow people got her, I don't know. But when I'm talking about these different types of shadow beings, you know, there's people who are seeing like a wide variety, like I was saying.
The person whom you're trying to reach is
She did not answer. Well, hopefully she'll pop on. Hopefully she'll be able to ring back in on Skype. I don't know. Anyway, when people are having these encounters, like I said, they're seeing like a wide variety of these things. And there's some of them people are having these encounters with these things that are like a mist-like entity. She just hit my cell phone. Let's see what she says here. Sorry, guys. Her PC kicked her off again. It's weird. Her computer's running the whole time, all day long, every day. And then when we do these random shows with poltergeists or shadows or some type of strange spiritual paranormal type thing, it seems like her ghosties at her house are like, not today. But mists, people are experiencing both white and black mists that seem to form from like nowhere. Now sometimes these mists will from what I was reading, they'll gather itself, I guess, into like the shape of either a human form, or, you know, sometimes it'll be like this smoky type of mist. But these mists, they seem to appear as quickly as they disappear, from what I was reading from people's, you know, encounters and stuff. But I personally, from what I recall anyway, I have never encountered a black mist in person, but I have seen white mist forms, and I've actually captured a few of these white mist forms on video back in the day and stuff. And maybe sometime when we have like our own paranormal talk show or whatever, me and Spooky should share some of our own videos and EVPs again. But let me check and see if Spooky's back on. Nope. Let's see. It makes it awkward to do our show when she's not here, but you know, I think these there's this place that I was reading. Oh, here she's back. Are you there?
I'm here.
Okay. Well, hopefully you'll say a little blessing. Your spirits let you stay back on, because I don't know why it is, but things seem to happen when we talk about certain paranormal topics.
I know.
Lately,
It did this with poltergeist. Now we're talking about shadow people, and I don't know what it is. I really don't.
I gotta make sure your level's back up high. Okay, it's set there, so people should be. I'm glad you're back. But I was just talking about mists, where it's a type of encounter that people are seeing when it comes to these shadow entities and stuff. And a lot of people are seeing like these black mists, and it's not so much in a solid form, but they see these quickly kind of like hovering above their room or coming through their doorway, and then going through a wall or what have you.
Well, to my knowledge, I've never encountered a shadow person. Well, that is until my research when I found out that they can appear in different forms.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to get back, so please bear with me.
Well, you're just in here, so you don't have to worry about getting so much on the YouTube channel. Just kind of go on with, we're talking about our stuff.
So, but,
I'm talking about mists. And I've never personally encountered a black mist, but I have seen white forms of mists,
Well, like, one of the places that I like, that I love to go to, is a place called the Cheney Mansion, and I have talked about it before, and I have been in it several times. There's just something about the place that I love, and it's not just the ghosts that inhabit it. It's I love it because it's an old place, and I love the history of it. And I've said many times that if I was to build my own house, I would build a replica of this place, of course, on a smaller scale. But anyway, now I've seen many dark mists in this place. On stairs, along walls, in the basement, but these mists really had no form, and I always thought of them as apparitions not yet formed. Now, some would last a while, and others just seemed to disappear when I looked at them. In an intelligent haunting, ghosts are fickle. They will only show themselves if they want to, and this is what I thought these mists were.
I thought they were just, to your knowledge, you just assumed these were just apparitions. You didn't really acknowledge them with these shadow entities because you always thought they were like a shadow person, is what you're saying?
Exactly. Then? I didn't even associate them with a shadow person.
Yeah.
I just thought they were apparitions that were trying to form that just didn't quite make it. But they were not exactly black. But they were, a little on the dark side. And I've even seen full apparitions in this place. Now, I could make them out right down to the hair color, the clothes they wore, and the facial features. But when I was doing my research, I read a lot of encounters where people were talking about being in bed and either waking up or getting ready to go to sleep, and they would see a mist form above them and hover.
Right.
Now, I didn't, and like I said, I never associated them with shadow people, so I didn't even know that this was possibly a shadow entity until I was doing my research.
Right. There's this place in Seattle. There was this hotel. Well, actually, there's a lot of places. But this hotel, it was called the Cerrito. Now, this place, what I was reading about, they have a lot of these, they have a lot of activity. So if you're in Seattle, go check out this hotel if you're into the paranormal, which you would be if you're listening to this topic tonight.
If you're listening to us, you are into the paranormal.
Yeah, but at this place, the late night staff, they always talk about seeing these black mists that are being seen all over the place. And one night, actually, it was captured on their security cameras where they saw this black mist that floated out of their elevator. And it was seen on their security cameras. And I'm sure there might be a video out there, but we don't try to take other people's stuff without permission, you know what I mean?
Right.
But this place, it seems like a lot of people are seeing black mists and shadow type of entities, for sure.
Oh, yeah. Another place I enjoy going to is the Mineral Springs Hotel. Now, it is right now it's an antique mall. Mm-hmm. And I like going there, and looking at all the shops. And this place has quite a history. It was built over like a mineral spring, which fed into the basement swimming pool. And it's also a place where gangsters and other criminals hung out, as well as really well-to-do people. Honest people, I guess. I don't know. But when you walk in, one of the first things you notice is this grand staircase leading up to the second floor. And several times I've noticed a dark mist at the top of the stairs that seemed to be pacing back and forth a few times and then just disappear.
Yeah.
Now, I've also witnessed mist in a couple of the stores on the first floor. They never seem to interact with anyone, though. But some of the vendors have told me that when they lock up at night, mm-hmm. the next day they would come in and things would be moved around in their stores. And not only that, their stores would also be unlocked.
Oh, that would
Now,
be alarming.
yeah, it would be to me too, you know. And some of the vendors would tell me that they would be in a certain area of their store and they would notice this dark mist in a corner and they would get the feeling they were being watched. But, I mean, it never really interacted with them.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. There's our trucker friend, Andrew. He went to the Mineral Springs Hotel not that long ago. And he was telling me about some of his encounters. And he himself said that he had saw a shadow on that staircase that you were talking about. So, you know, well, he also saw other things. He experienced other things while he was there too. So yeah. I think it's kind of interesting that you as well had an encounter in that same areas that he did. You know, so I find that very fascinating. You know, you two not sharing your story and totally being in separate states. Well, except for when he drove there and went there or whatever. That he too had a similar thing. So it makes me wonder if this is like an intelligent thing or a repeated, outplayed type of encounter.
Residual? Like a residual?
Yeah, as far as I want to go. Do you recall that one website that we used to go watch? They used to stream all the time. This was like abandoned hospital. It was like 24/7. Which is a photo, like, this is a photo of that hospital at the time, but, you know, I just kind of drew a shadow entity in there. But it's like in Oklahoma or the Opera Research, whatever, the camps. I think they're down right now because they haven't brought them back up or anything like that. But you and I both would watch that a lot, and we would see these black mists come out of a room and float down the hallway, turn, and go into another room.
Oh, yeah. We didn't just see black mist there, though. We saw apparitions and shadow entities while watching these cams.
Yeah.
I also screen capped some of them, but unfortunately I lost all those photos when my old PC decided to die. You recall that time that raccoon fell through the ceiling to the floor?
Yes, Rocky. That scared the crud out of me, dude. We were just sitting there watching, and there was a lot of activity going, and I remember seeing, like, the stuff starting to fall to the floor.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, what the heck is that? And then all of a sudden, boom, this raccoon.
I know. I was watching something on the cam, and I really had my face up there watching this entity, and all of a sudden that raccoon fell in front of us like this scared me to death.
I know. I missed those cameras. Totally.
Yeah, me too, but people are also seeing these black blobs or masses.
Yeah, not just
mist. Not just mist, exactly.
That happened to me, actually. Because, well, sometimes, when you're on your PC or your computer or whatever, I usually have my lights turned out. So it's, the room's dark around me, but you have the light from your monitor. And sometimes I'll see, like, this dark mass moving around the floor out of the corner of my eye, and I look, and I still kind of see it moving about in the in the darkness, and I always assume it's just my cat. So I'll say something to him, and then I'll end up turning on the light, and then I turn around and I only discover my cat wasn't even in the room. The doors are shut and everything, and he's not even in here. And I've seen these mass black it's not even in the form of a cat sometimes. It's just like this little blob thing moving around.
Just low to the floor that you assume it's your cat. Yeah. And speaking of cats, people also talk about seeing shadow animals. And that seems to be just as frequently seen as the shadow man. Yeah. People talk about seeing these shadow cats, during the daylight and at night.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it many times. First, you kind of like catch a glimpse of it, like right out of your, peripheral vision, and then you like turn and you look, and then it's gone. And then other times I'll see it walking by, like with my full vision. And then all of a sudden, like, I'll see something, and I'm like, oh, it's my cat. Like, your mind's thinking, oh, it's my cat, but then you realize, like, wait a minute, that's not my cat. What the frick is that?
Ghost Call, Alex is asking, have you had a shadow disappear into the floor?
Yeah, I have.
I haven't.
I've had some go through the walls and stuff, but, like I said, I've caught glimpses of this spirit cat walking by, and then there's some people who say, that these things, these black cats or dogs or normally I only hear people talking about seeing cats, though, shadow cats, but people will say that these are just spirits of our pets that we've lost. But I've never had a cat before, not until like now, and that cat's still alive, and I've only had a few dogs. But I've been seeing this shadow cat you know, a lot of times. And it's, you know, not just here, I've seen it other places too, but, you know, it's happened so often that I've lost count to how many times I've actually seen it. And I've seen it during like daylight hours, even like when a whole room is like lit up, to even like partially lit room, or even just when I have the, you know, only the TV on, or my PC monitor going. So it's happening in a wide range of times and different lightings and stuff. And I'm not the only one who has witnessed it, you know, here in my place too, because I've had other people come over, or have other people here who actually seen it at the same time I have, and they'll make a comment like, I thought I just saw your cat walking across the floor, but then when they look over, they'll see my cat still sleeping in the chair, kind of statement, you know?
I've never really experienced this. Well, I can't say that. One time in the Cheney Mansion, I did notice this black mist that was shaped like a cat, and even caught it meowing on my digital recorder. But
you have that one photo though with the tail. You could see the tail of a cat,
right?
But nothing
it was sitting in the window. Yeah. Oh, you know what? I didn't think about that.
But that doesn't go.
Or I would have submitted it.
Well, that's
but
for
that one's white though, or gray. It's a dark gray.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did encounter that. But see, I didn't think of it being a shadow animal because of the coloring of it.
Yeah.
To me it was just too light. I just did not associate that lightness with a shadow. But like I said, during my research, I found out that, you know, it can be anywhere from pitch black to gray.
A smoky gray. Yeah, I read some of that too. So maybe there's but maybe there are different types of these entities, and it's really hard to say, because it's so hard to really classify all the different encounters that everybody's having. They can just say, well, a lot of people have experienced this, while other people experience this. They're not always the exact same, you know. You know what I gotta do sometime? I gotta see if I can like borrow someone's IR cam and then just set it up and then leave it recording and see if I can actually catch this shadow cat one time on video. Probably catch my real cat, but I'm curious if this shadow cat and my real cat, if they ever interact, because I've never really noticed that, you know, because my cat's not in the same place at the time when I'm seeing this shadow thing. But then again, if he's sleeping, some people will say, well, maybe your cat was astral projecting itself and it was walking around. You know, there's people who think that, you know, but
yeah,
I have also seen shadow people here too, though. So it's not just shadow cat.
Well, a shadow person is another thing that people are always talking about encountering. These shadow figures tend to have the form of a human, and it's most often a male rather than a female shape. And many times they're seen as solid black form with no distinguishable features. Black, I mean, you know, they've been said to be blacker than the black around them.
Yeah, blacker than black. Like the blacker than regular black.
Blacker than black, you know, if that makes any sense.
It does to the people who've seen these things. So.
Yeah, it does. And it's often heard many times when people tell of their encounters that most of the time they're seen in the peripheral vision of a person moving down like a hallway or through a wall, or often even seen standing in the corner of a room or at the edge of one's bed. There have even been reports of people being chased or terrorized by these shadow beings. And they say that these black humanoids are often something like, I mean, really tall, you know, anywhere between 6 to 7 feet in height.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are saying these things are really huge.
Yeah.
It's kind of creepy, but, you know, there's some people who see these shadow entities full on. You know, not just out of the corner of their eye, just a quick glimpse, but they're seeing them like full view. And it's all varying in different sizes and shapes, too, you know, what I was reading. But I know I've seen them both out of the corner of my eye, and I've also seen them dead in my sights. You know, they're standing in my doorway, you know, or looking at me, or out, even when I'm like out and about in different kinds of locations. And I'm not talking about me being on like a paranormal investigation at some known haunted sites, because I don't do that stuff myself. I'm not against other people, you know, doing that. Cool for them. It's just something I just don't do, you know. But I see these things in just random places, you know. And sometimes I actually see these things following people around, you know, and I know I'm not the only one who's caught glimpses of these type of things before. But, you know, each encounter that a person tends to have, like I said, it varies from what I've heard and I've read from people's experiences. You know, some say, you know, like you said, they catch a glimpse of them. And then when they turn to look at these things will just vanish. Or, you know, they talk about seeing them full on. And when this shadow entity notices that us people or these people can actually see them, it's like this shadow entity becomes like shocked and it like flees, like it tries to hide then. Or there's other times where they'll say that these things will charge them full on and then just run right through them, and then it leaves them with like this weird emotional feeling, you know. And
wow,
you know, this to me makes me think that this thing has some form of intelligence to it. Like if it's aware when a person sees it and then makes a beeline to hide itself, obviously it's aware of its surroundings and who's in its surroundings, you know?
Well, do you recall a few years ago when this paranormal show went to do an investigation at the Moundsville Penitentiary?
Yeah.
And during their show, it seems they captured a shadow man on video standing partially in a doorway looking at them. I believe it was Taps. I'm not sure what show it was.
It was Taps because they were at.
Okay.
That was like years ago, where it was like partially standing in the door, like half of its body was out with its arm.
Yeah,
up,
right.
Remember?
Right. And it seems that many of these old abandoned penitentiaries and sanatoriums, people are having hundreds of encounters with these shadow men.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Waverly Hills. That place seems to be a haven for them, according to all these photos and videos and personal encounters.
Oh, yeah. Like, Waverly Hill is, like, a lot of people are constantly talking about that. But, you know, it's not just, you know, these prisons and stuff. You know, when I was actually doing our research and, you know, reading all these different things, you know, from books to videos to whatever, I came across a lot of nurses' stories online where they're talking about seeing, well, they see like a wide range of stuff, but they do talk a lot about seeing like these black mists or these shadow entities while they're working in a hospital or, you know, like a hospice setting or a retirement home.
Right.
You know, we could do like a whole show just on what nurses see with the paranormal, you know?
Oh, yeah. My oldest sister worked as a registered nurse for a lot of years, and she would tell me stories about seeing them. But it's not just nurses. Yeah. You know, there's doctors and other staff who work in these places, and they see these things as well. Now, should one think that these are like the Grim Reaper waiting around to collect souls, or are they just spirits of loved ones waiting around for their loved ones to pass on?
I don't know. I mean, who knows? I mean, maybe they're like these, like, you know, lower level entities just feeding off the sickness, you know? I mean, and it's not just hospitals, you know, that I read about, you know, as well, in that have these things. You know, they talk about seeing these shadow people and shadow mists and all that stuff. You see them in cemeteries and hotels and restaurants, even boats, you know?
Oh, yeah, like the Queen Mary. We have that one photo from our previous guest, Laces.
Yeah. Like we said, we're going to post a link to that show. We'll post a link to that show, too, in our reference tonight, because actually he has a lot of other things that he talks about.
Shared,
and he shared during that show other photos with even, like, a really solid apparition where you can see the person's clothes, their skin coloring, and everything else. And we have EVPs. He has EVPs during the Queen Mary, too, But during,
that was a good show.
Yeah, but during his tour, there wasn't like a lot of people on that one, I guess. Remember when he was saying that? And he actually went down to the engine room. Nobody really wanted to go down to the engine room, so they're like, well, you can go ahead. So he went down on his own, and no one else wanted to go down. So, you know, they stayed up in other parts, so he went down to the engine room by himself, and he was just, you know, snapping photos. And in one of the photos, you see like this black shadow spirit of a man like squatting down. You know how you squat down, you're kind of like sitting on your feet,
right?
You're like bending down, and it looks like he's holding like this clipboard and a pen. And what we're gonna do is, like, I'll share the original, and then I'm gonna share a couple other photos where we kind of played with it to help you guys see what we're seeing. But let me just pop open the video or photo. I keep thinking of that video up from Myrtle Plantation where that solid man walked by. But in this first photo, above his name laces out, right where the C is, if you go straight back down to the hallway of the engine room, I mean, what you wouldn't call this a hallway. What would you call that? You'd call like a deck, a deck or whatever. But you can see this
gangway.
Little black.
Isn't that what they call them on boats? Gangways?
I don't know. If I knew, I wouldn't have asked you.
I don't know.
Some boatmen will tell us anyway. But you can see above the sea, if you go a little bit, like 1, 2, 3, 4 pulls down, you'll see like this shadowy thing on the floor right about there. And then I'm going to click to the next photo where I kind of pointed an arrow to it. And then we outlined this shadow thing. But it looks like there's this guy who's squatting down and he's still carry on his engine duties. Like he's making sure everything's, running the way it's supposed to run. You know what I mean?
Right.
But here is a more zoomed in photo for you guys to look. I know there's like a 30-second delay between our viewers and us conversing and stuff. And so
this was a great capture.
I know.
I was really amazed when I saw this. He got some good stuff.
Right, and for those who can't see again, it's like right below, like you see his name laces out on the top. It's right below the C and E on the top. You can go straight down from below the top C and see its head. And then you can see like this thing, the knees, and it's kind of sitting on its toes, on its boots, like checking stuff. And I'll hit the other photo where we have it kind of like, I turned it purple to try to help those who can't see very good with the normal coloring or whatever. But we do have this in Spooky's Corner, so you guys can go and check them out and zoom in on these and everything else. But like he said, he was just walking around just snapping photos, and then when he went, they were on vacation, and then when he got home and he was looking at everything, that's when he realized, like, wow, I have like a ton of like things that occurred here. And like I said, during that show he had shared other photos as well, but they weren't classified more as a shadow type of thing. Although this isn't as solid black as some things that people see, it's still a form of a shade of black. So we called it, like, it's a shadow spirit or whatever, shadow entity, whatever you want to call it, shadow man. Although, like, everybody has different encounters, different variety of them.
You can clearly see this is a man that is squatted down, doing his work. I mean, you can even kind of see the clipboard and the pen where he's, I don't know, he's
checking gauges for the engine.
Yeah, like he's checking gauges and stuff.
Right, but I don't even know if this thing saw him, and I don't.
Yeah, it's like Doppel just said. It's like a residual haunting going about its business as if it's alive.
Right. Just a thing that's going on, and with all these different types of experiences and encounters that people are having, it's really hard to classify and put each one into a certain category. But yet, it all kind of falls under these shadow beings or shadow entities because they are, featureless beings that are in a darker shade of coloring and stuff. And tonight this fit, we asked him if we could put it on again tonight, and he said yeah, go ahead. But like we said, we're going to post the link so you guys can watch the rest of it, because he has tons of other photos and EVPs and things that occurred on Queen Mary.
But I think I would classify this, if I was going to classify it, as a residual. Because it doesn't seem to be interacting with anyone. It's like, it's like Doppel said, it's just going about his business like he did when he was alive.
Right. And me and you, there's some people who are going to listen and they'll make it upset. Like, you don't know what shadow beings are or what shadow entities are. And you're right. We don't know what they are because there's a wide variety of things. And we are not experts. We're just kind of sharing a wide variety of the things that people are encountering and leave it up tell you guys to kind of really decide. But, there's some things that people aren't aware of. And when they hear some of the things that we bring up tonight, they'll be like, that's interesting or whatever, So, because there are some people out there that have these books or everything, and they like my way or the highway. And, we're not like that. Because
I'm always leery of someone who tells me they're an expert. Because in my opinion, nobody's an expert. You just have more experience than other people, or what works for you does not work for me.
Right.
whatever.
I don't even know if I'm an expert at walking,
I do paranormal investigations. I haven't done one for a while, but I do paranormal investigations, and what works for me does not work for another person.
Right. But that's a cool thing about the internet is, like, there's such a wide variety of people with different beliefs and theories and ways of thinking that we can all come together and just have friendly banter or share our encounters or share our evidence. And, we have, like, a good community, and sometimes things can go awry because it's just like anything else in life. There's going to be negative and there's going to be positive. It just is what it is.
Exactly.
But it's nice to have this outlet to be able to converse with somebody else, to be like, I am seeing this, so you don't feel like you're alone, and there's other people out there that are experiencing this too, so you're not crazy, There was this time when I was in Tennessee with some friends, and I kind of sketched up this photo to kind of what I saw, but it wasn't like 100% because I can't like get it in great detail because it was such a weird thing that I was seeing. But I was in Tennessee with my friends, and we were staying at this place that was not even like 5 minutes from the body farm. And for those who don't know what the body farm is this place where people who donate their bodies to science, sometimes
it's the anthropology department of the University of Tennessee.
Right. And what they do is they have these bodies in multiple different situations, like some are like in a metal trunk, or some are in plastic, or some are kind of partially buried or whatever, and they're studying different decay settings and all the other stuff. Anyway,
right.
But where I was at in Tennessee, we were basically 5 minutes from the body farm. But one night, me and my friend and we went outside to have a smoke. And we were standing on this dirt road. It was like a dirt road / alley. You have like a couple houses. You know how you have you don't really have per se a paved street to every house.
Right.
But you have alleyways to get to your houses,
Right.
From the main street. And so we were standing that, road / alleyway. And there were like a few houses between, the paved part and where we were at, and right behind us was the Tennessee River. So we were right at the edge of the end of this little dirt road alley. And I don't recall like what time it was. I just know it was late. It was dark, it was late, the stars were out or whatever. And it was like winterish time, but there wasn't really any snow there. It's like Tennessee, so it was like a good winter season, I guess. You know what I mean?
Yeah, about 60 degrees.
Whatever. I don't know. I can't. I can't remember like every single thing.
No. Oh, I'm sorry. You said winter, so that would make it 50 degrees.
Anyway, it was dark out. That's all I know. But on this road, there were a few porch lights, and I think there was like one or two like street lights kind of casting down onto the alley / dirt road. Anyway, while I was out smoking, I was, kind of spinning around, looking around and whatever, like what you do when you're out smoking. And I looked up the road and I saw this dark black figure walking towards us. And I told my friend to like, hey, look, and I obviously didn't say it that way, but, basically got their attention to look, because it caught my attention because of how black this thing was. It was blacker than the night. It was the blackest black I've ever seen. And it was solid. And when I was watching this thing, it was going under these, light type of things that were casting down onto that gravel road. And you could see that it was just solid mass of a black type of thing. And it was weird because when I was looking at this, trying to like figure out like what the blank is this, it was deformed in a type of shape. You know what I mean? And it was like one arm was like kind of bigger than the other, and it was kind of like walking like a gimpish way, like just like a strange way. I guess almost like you want to say like zombie-ish walk is the best way I could probably describe for you guys to kind of get a visual. And this thing had absolutely no like real distinguishable features as far as like facial features or things like that. It was just one solid black weird freaking thing is the best way I could describe it. All right. And
yeah.
And every time it was passing under these nearby lights, it didn't, you'd think, okay, I'd catch a glimpse of the face or whatever. It was nothing. It was just black. So, of course, you know, we flicked our smoke, and I'm like, we're going inside now, you know, because whatever that thing was not worth hanging around to find out face to face, because we were like right at the end of that road. This thing's coming down, so I had nowhere to run. There was like a house to the right and a house to the left and the river behind me, and I wasn't going to jump into the Tennessee River, which is huge, you know what I mean. So like we booked it in the house. We didn't even finish our cigarette. I think it probably had like maybe 4 or 5 drags off of it, you know, because it was freaky. You know, I mean, I don't smoke anymore, but this was back in the day when I did. I quit years ago, but to this day, I still don't know what for sure that was. I don't know if it, you know, if it was. I know it wasn't human. That's all I know. Okay, I know for a fact it was not a human person, but I don't know if it was like, I don't know, like a weird cryptid creature or one of these shadow entities. Because at the time when this occurred, I wasn't on the internet researching things or looking into things like we have been in the past 5 or 6 years now, because I was always out running around doing stuff. And yes, I saw things, yes, I've had experiences, but I didn't start, you know, hanging around on the internet till like a few years, you know, when we met, you know what I mean? Yeah. So I didn't have this in my mind, like, oh, so I didn't conjure this up. I mean, it was real, and she saw it too or whatever. So I don't know, to this day, I can't 100% say yes, it's one of these shadow entities, because it seems so real and so solid and like so physical to me, the way that it, you know, how it's ingrained in my brain, and it's always going to be there forever. And the fact that, you know, right up to the right of me is that huge cliff, and right up on the top of the cliff is the huge body farm. So it makes me think, is like, is this thing coming from the body farm, or, you know, I don't know. It's just freaky. So like, this is the best I could do to scribble a photo for tonight, you know, but I don't know. It kind of fits with the topic tonight, because there are a wide variety of these things that people are seeing.
Well, if you were near the body farm, that means that you were in a wooded area around Knoxville, Tennessee.
Yeah.
You had the river behind you, cliffs and woods to the right where the body farm is located. I've been there, so I know where it's at.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine what it could have been, but those body farms, I bet, have a lot of things around them. And there are those that have seen them in forest and woods. I read this encounter where this boy was walking in the woods near his home, and he encountered a shadow person that was peeking around a tree, and it waved at him.
Yeah.
There are also reports that I've read of people being attacked.
By these,
you know, they were bitten, they were hit, they were thrown across a room. So it probably was a good thing that you and your friend went inside when you did, because who knows what could have happened when this thing reached you guys.
I'm just glad it kind of was gimpy and slow.
It was gimpy and slow.
Or
if it was a zombie, you could have outran it.
Right, and if there wasn't those few dim lights that were on, who knows if we would have saw it at the distance that we saw it at. We could have turned and saw it when it was like right up on us, because it was actually quiet. There wasn't any sound, you know? And I think the human mind at the time, and at that time when we saw this thing, we didn't have cell phones on us and things like that or anything, because people were like, why didn't you take a picture? Well, you know what? You know, this is when I was younger and I didn't have all this stuff, you know? Whereas now I have money and we can have things, you know what I mean? But you know,
I don't know. I'm cheap. My cell phone doesn't have a camera on it.
Yeah, your flip phone.
My flip phone. I still use a flip phone.
Yeah.
Because I'm the type of person, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right. But people are like, why didn't you take a photo? And here's the thing, and it always seems to happen with everybody. You have these encounters, and you know, sometimes you have something on you where you can take a photo, and other times you don't. And then it's always like, dang, you know, like, but sometimes when you're seeing these things, I think you're in a state of either shock or in a state of, like, your brain's trying to figure out, like, what the blank am I looking at, that you don't even think about, let me pull out my camera, let me start streaming live on Facebook. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sometimes you get stuck in this thing, and there comes to a point where your body and your mind clicks where, like, it's the fight or fight thing, and a lot of people go into the flight mode and then disappear, and it's not till later on they're like, dang it, I wish I would have had something to capture this or whatever. But at that time I didn't have those type of things on me, you know what I mean? When we
that's like now I used to run into things that I thought, wow, I wish I had a camera on me. So I start carrying a camera.
Yeah, now
and
I
I'll
do.
run into and I'll run into something, and I'll sit there and watch it. And wow, am I the only one seeing this? And I forget to use the camera.
Right, like that one time when I was.
You don't think of it. You're in such awe of what you're seeing, or shock.
Yeah.
That even though you got the camera in the back seat, you're not grabbing it and clicking your picture.
But then there's a lot of times where people quickly see this thing and it's just as quick as you saw it, it disappears. There's no way that you can capture it. And I think a lot of times these people have these encounters, which gets them into paranormal investigating because they want to prove to themselves, yes, I'm not crazy. And they think if I can capture this on some type of device, then not only does it, prove to myself that I'm not crazy,
nuts,
but these things are here,
Well, some of these people, too, that are having these experiences for the first time don't even know that there's other people out there that are having them, too, or that there are people out there that actually investigate them.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
While I was, researching these shadow entities and stuff, I did come across, like, a wide variety of things, like I said, when I was reading things like that. And I did actually come across a bunch of old newspaper articles from the 1800s. And of course, I thought, well, I'm going to throw some of these in because a lot of people are like, oh, this is a new phenomenon because of all the electronics. And because we have all these electronics, it's bringing in these, it's like opening portals and attracting these things and thus giving them life, But it isn't really a new thing because they have been talking about them since you said, way back since Egyptians and other stuff, and Greeks and all this stuff.
I know. Until I started researching this, I didn't know how far back these sightings went.
Right. Well, it's just not something you don't think about until you have an encounter with something or whatever. And like you said, you saw some things, but you didn't correlate it. I
didn't associate them with shadow people
until you found out that these shadow entities have different shapes and very forms and stuff. But I found this newspaper article from 1881. And the setting was where there was a bunch of men. They're working the late hours. Okay, it's like midnight or whatever. So they're working at this place. It was called the Wadsworth and Sons Factory. And I think they were making I don't know, some type of farming tools or whatever. I can't remember 100%. But it's on the newspaper articles, and we put them in our references so you guys can go and read all the newspaper article. But I'm kind of summarizing this up. But there's tons of these men, and they're sitting there working. And they actually saw this dark shadow apparition up in the timber beams above their head. And they were watching it. It was kind of freaking them out. And this one guy was so scared, he actually took out his pistol and he took a shot at this thing. Well, revolver. I guess that's what you call it back then.
Yeah.
And he shot, and the bowl of the revolver went right through this thing, and it crashed into the timber. And then this shadow being, from what they were saying, it was like the shape of a man. It actually jumped and disappeared through the roof. And then later on, when they were working, they would see this shadow being, again, person, whatever you want to call them, perched on a ridgepole. So that was one of those article. I found another article that happened in Tennessee in 1893. And this was like a small town. I think it was called Cloveland. I believe that's what it says on the article. It's basically like 30 miles from Chattanooga. But
it's Cleveland.
Well, whatever. Anyway.
Sorry.
Well, it's hard to read the article.
Well, I've been there
it says
too.
Either
That's why I knew.
Cleveland or Cleveland, because when you're reading the type print, it's really small. But
yeah, I know, but I've been there too. That's why I knew where it was.
Okay. But basically, this small town back in 1893, they were seeing a wide variety of spirits. They're actually being harassed. Not just one person, but a lot of people in town. I'd almost say almost the whole town from what it was, the way they were describing it. And a whole town back then isn't like how it is now. Like a suburb could have like 157,000 people. This is like something small, you know what I mean? But these people, they're all talking about there's different accounts, and they were talking how these things were harassing them for several weeks, okay? And there was this one that they were talking about where they were seeing this woman in black, as though it was like, and there was no distinguishable features of this black woman apparition, but it was in a form of all black. And there was this I don't know. It was like it was going up and down the town a lot, and they would see it hovering above the road, and they would see it in different sections, and then sometimes this thing would go into buildings or whatever. And then I found like this other article, which I think was in 1938. Okay, which this one I found interesting because it took place in a Catholic church. Okay, you think like churches won't have these things in there because, you know, people are...
That's not true.
No, I'm saying, but some people will think that. Well, they're being positive, they're praying, it's all spiritual, it should be nothing but good things in there, you know what I mean? Nobody...
Right.
They think... Because a lot of people who... I shouldn't say a lot of people. There's some people who are religious that believe that spirits and all these things are nothing but demonic evil. Nothing good could come from it, you know what I mean?
Right.
And that's okay.
Right.
That's their belief system. They're welcome to it. Because it's called freedom. You know what I mean? Freedom to have our own thoughts. You know what I mean? Just not to, you know, push our agenda on other people. You know, but the church was called St. Nicholas Croatian Church. And this, from what I was reading, this one is, the way they described it, was a black-robed spirit. Okay? And we do read about a lot of encounters where people are seeing robed entities, shadow entities.
Right.
Well, this guy, his name was Father Zagar. He hired this artist named Maximo, okay? Now, I guess Maximo was like this awesome artist, okay, for back in the day. And he was hired to paint like a series of murals in this church. Now, when he was there, you know, he was witnessing this black-robed apparition a lot, I guess. I mean, it was freaking him out.
Wow.
But when Maximo came to do his murals, he insisted that he wanted everyone to stay out of the chapel while he worked, you know, so he could concentrate or whatever. Well, one day, which it says in the paper on April 13th, he said that he noticed the black robe shadow figure up by the altar, and it was making these gestures. I'm assuming not giving the middle finger. It was doing, going through the religious rituals that...
Maybe a robed priest?
Monk or whatever.
Monk, yeah.
When they go through the Eucharist or blessing of the Eucharist or whatever, because it's Catholic and stuff like that. And then, you know, so he was seeing that, and that freaked him out. Well, there was another night, you know, where he told the father, can you just stay in here while I'm working on the mural, you know? And he's like, okay, whatever. Well, that night, this robed spirit showed up again, and it ended up blowing out the candle on the altar.
Wow.
And the father Zagar, it's weird saying father, because, you know, think of dad, but that's, you know, they call them priests and fathers for Catholic churches or whatever. He went up and he touched the candle thing, and you could tell it was still warm or whatever, but the thing was out or whatever. But then this black-robed apparition started moving down the aisle and stuff. So this robed black shadow entity, you know, was being seen in this church in 1938. So that's just another example throughout the years, all the way up to today, that people are experiencing things. Do you recall that last episode show we did on the poltergeist stuff?
Oh, yeah.
Remember when I did the talk on the Sorensen family? And that daughter, remember she was out waiting for her father? She herself had experienced a shadow man before all hell broke loose, remember?
Yeah.
So, and that was in the 1800s, and that was in newspaper articles. So, I mean, I was just throwing this out there as an example that, you know, people are experiencing this for eons, you know? And to them, I guess they were just assuming these things are spirits or demons or devils, but, you know, but they had different terms for them back then than how they have now, you know? So, I just figured, you know, this is just worth sharing on tonight's topic, since we're trying to cover a little bit of everything, you know what I mean?
Right.
And it's not just it's not just in these new, you know, just not on the net. You're finding these in newspaper articles, so it's worth talking about. So.
Right. Well, speaking of the net, one of the things I love to do is watch video feeds. You know, other people got their cam set up, you know, showing things going on in their house.
Yeah.
And a few years ago, a friend broadcast from her house. Now, this cam was pointed down a dark hallway, and at the end of the hallway was a small nightlight. Now, while we were watching this cam, you know, we would see doors open and close. We'd see small shadows and even faint apparitions. And one night, as I was watching, this small night lights just suddenly disappeared. I mean, it was just pitch black in that hallway. And a few seconds later, it showed up again. Now, for some reason, I took a screen cap, and when I looked at the cap, I saw this huge figure of a man. It was so dark, it blocked out that light. But when it reached the end of the hall, it disappeared. And of course, that's another one that was on that computer that died. You know, you would not believe the pictures I lost on that computer.
I remember watching her camera too, and I think there was one night we were chatting and watching it, and we literally would see this thing. I think that was like a negative one though, because she ended up getting really sick.
Yeah, the stuff going on in that house was making her sick.
Yeah,
and she eventually moved out of it.
Yeah, and it was, at first it was like a benign type of thing, but then it really got dangerous for her.
Yes,
I don't even think it was just her. Didn't some of her animals get affected by this as well?
I really don't remember. I just remember how sick she got.
Yeah. Yeah, that was crazy to see this.
There was a lot of negative going on in that house. Even with that apparition. Remember it had an apparition of a small child in there?
Yeah.
And she would set these toys out, you know, and we'd watch these toys move around and stuff.
But they say sometimes these things, you know, will take on forms of other things to, you know.
But now that I think about it, though, all of them were basically in shadow form. You never really saw anything. You just saw the shape and knew what it was.
Yeah, and it was black. Always black.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Speaking of watching people's cams, one of our mods and a really good friend of ours has cameras up in her house. And she's not here tonight, you know, for the live chat or whatever. But, you know, she's had several of, I guess, what do you want to say, like tons of different types of activity that occurs.
Oh yeah, tons and tons of activity in that house.
No, we watched her cams in her house for like years, and we saw strange things going on. And what I did is to kind of give you guys a visualization while trying to tell this story, I took an old screen cap and I put this drawing on it to try to give you guys, like I said, a visual to while I tell this experience. Anyway, but let me get the photo up here if I can find it in the mass things of photos. But one night, me, Crazy Moose, and I'll call her Cheyenne, we were all on Skype talking while she was, Shy was sharing her cameras. And she was sharing it via Skype screen with us, so then we could see, like, I think she had, like, what, 5 or 6 cams at the time all going?
At least.
Or maybe 4 or 5 at the time. But anyway, so we were just chatting, and we were watching these cams because, like I said, there's tons of strange things that have been occurring in her home. And she would be catching tons of EVPs, as well as, seeing apparitions, and that night, what we did was we actually asked this spirit, who she thought the name was at the time was Jake or Jacob, because that's what she kept getting. And so, she had, instead of having headsets on, she had the PC speakers, so, the things in her house could hear us asking it questions or whatever. So, we asked, hey, Jake or Jacob, can you, show yourself to us, but if you're going to show yourself, don't hurt or harm anyone while you're doing so. And then while we were like chatting away, looking at all this stuff and just talking, this large black solid body of a man actually appeared behind this curio cabinet. And at first, only like the head appeared, like it was peeking around and kind of looking, like how sometimes a kid will peer around and look before coming out or whatever. And then it stuck its arm out and it waved. And, Crazy Moose was like, oh my God, look. And, of course, we all looked at that one camera because, I'm trying to keep an eye on all cameras. And, Cheyenne, she clicked on that one specific camera to enlarge that one video so we could just strictly look at that one. And that's when we saw this figure stand up and show itself to us. And it waved its arm at us. And we were like all in shock while this was happening because, well, of course, we forgot to turn on the record button or take stupid snap photos because, like I said, I'm like in shock that this was occurring. And this was happening, she was sitting in her kitchen at the time when this was occurring. And, I just didn't believe, like, I was seeing what I was seeing. I told her, like, this has got to be somebody in your house. You're playing a trick on us. And she's like, no, there's no way it was someone in her house, because it was just her and her dad was sleeping in his bedroom, which you could see from this photo. His bedroom's off, to the left. You'd see him come out of this, that area and have to make his way that way. We never saw him leave his room. But I still said, like, no way. This has got it. Because people are always trying to capture this or see these type of things. And your mind doesn't want to believe that you're seeing what you're seeing. So I told her, like, go up there and go over there and go stand over there and prove to me it wasn't a living person. So she went and stood in the exact same spot, and you could see her t-shirt, you could see her clothing, you could even see the color of her skin and everything. And it was totally unlike this shadow man. This shadow man was blacker than black, and it was solid. And that's not the first and the last time that we saw this strange, solid type of things happen in her house, but since then we started recording and snapping photos.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? But
oh, yeah.
When this first happened, it freaked us out. Like, your mind couldn't believe what you were seeing, and this thing was interacting with what we asked it to do. And even before we had saw that, she had saw during the day a man standing there that actually she thought was her father, because it was just in those type of mechanic jumpsuits, or what do you call overalls type of things, where mechanics,
overalls, yeah,
they wear that, yeah. So she thought it was dad and said, hey dad, why are you standing over there? And then it wasn't her dad, because then her dad came out from another room, and she was like, what the heck was that? So it's, things are being seen in full ghostly apparitions to these solid things,
Yeah, well, I wasn't watching that night, but there was a time when we were watching, and at that time she had the cam positioned in her kitchen. It was facing down basically that same hallway, because there's another entrance to that hallway.
Right.
And at the end of the hallway, you could see her stairs that,
well, like
went
this
up to
photo
the second
right
level.
Here, where that man, the drawing that I did of the shadow entity, that's where that hallway is. So that's where, so if you're standing in that hallway facing the camera, facing that way, you would see her stairs coming down. So where this man was that exact same hallway is what you're talking about. I just happened to have a photo of that.
But it just, but in that one area, when you came down the stairs and you went down that hallway toward the kitchen, there was the garage door there on the right. Mm-hmm. And I sat and watched a man materialize on the steps. And he, it was about 3, maybe 4 steps up. Well, he came down the steps, and he came down that hallway that led into the kitchen, and he stopped by the garage door. Now, he was gray and had no facial features, but you could clearly tell it was a man. And he stood by the garage door for a couple minutes, and then he just disappeared. Mm-hmm. Now, my mind told me that I just saw an apparition, but my research tells me I saw a shadow person.
Right.
Because I found out that, like I said, not all shadow people are necessarily black. Sure, he was dark, but he was like, more like a dark gray.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, and my research told me they can be anything from the darkest black to the lightest gray.
Yeah.
Now, at this same house, on a different night, and you were watching this night too, when we were watching that night when that black ball of mist come out of that ceiling and shot across the room out of view of the camera. Do you remember that one?
Yeah, she does have it recorded somewhere, but like we haven't been able to connect with her because she hasn't been around because she's got a lot going on. But hopefully one time we'll be able to share a bunch of video feeds, EVPs, and photos that have been captured or placed or whatever. But her place is, like I said, it's very active, and we could probably...
And the thing of it is too right now, well, I think they're done now, but they were doing a lot of extensive work on it because she was caught in their house was caught in that flood that happened about 2 years ago.
I don't know,
year and a half, whatever, when they had that big flood, that big
Louisiana
hurricane or something come
a
up.
lot.
Yeah, it does.
What I mean? But like I said, her place is extremely active, and we could talk about her place.
We could do a whole show on her place.
Yeah, all night long about weird things that go on there. And it's not just me and you. Richard, he's been on Skype with us and watched it, and other people. So I
think Richard was watching with us that night too.
Yeah, but we need to stay on the topic of shadow things. But speaking of the black ball size mist type thing that you were talking, now I'm going to switch photos again just to give people something else to look at. But I don't know if this kind of fits here, but maybe it does, because I myself have seen actually black orbs with my own eyes. Not like on a camera, not on live feed on the internet, or just like right with like straight on dead center of my eyesight. And it's happened on a few occasions, and I've never saw the black orbs before until I started seeing these ones, and I know it wasn't a bug because I saw it appear, and then I saw it go like across my line of vision to get my attention, and then I watched it disappear or like go through a wall. Now, I always wondered like what the blanket was that, but what if these black orb-shaped things are just another version of these shadow entities, because they seem to have the ability to take on many forms from what we're reading with everybody's experiences and encounters. So, because you always see people, of course you get weather elements when you're outside and stuff, but you do have people talking about seeing orbs of energy of a wide variety of colors, but I've never really heard so much about people seeing these black orbs, and I was just thinking, like, I wonder if this encounter that I'm having fits with tonight, because maybe, it's just another way of this shadow entity trying to get the attention from someone, and it just...
Well, it's like I said, in the research that I did for this show, I found out that these shadow entities do not necessarily come in a form. A lot report that they're shaped mostly like a male, and that you could tell, even though they're solid black, but they could come in orbs, they could come in mist.
Yeah.
Just everything. So if you see a black ball of mist shooting across.
But it wasn't a mist, it was like a perfectly round.
Right.
And it was huge too. It was larger than a silver dollar, and it was perfectly round. It was not a bug. It had no wings. It had nothing.
But my point is that it could have still been one of those shadow entities.
Yeah.
Because like I said, in my research, I never gave much thought to shadow people. I had heard about them. I never gave much thought to them because, as far as I knew, I never encountered one, because I always associated them with being formed like a person. Humanoid. I didn't know that they came in mist, they came in orbs, from the blackest black to almost a light gray, like a medium gray, whatever. Well, I never associated them with that.
A lot of people talked about reported seeing these things as, like a dark man with no face.
Yeah, and that was the one thing that they all had in common, that there were no distinguishable features. You couldn't tell, even though you might be able to tell that they were shaped like a human, you didn't see a face. You may have noticed a cloak and sometimes, a hat, but you didn't notice any facial features or anything like that. Many people have reported seeing a dark man with no face, wearing a cloak, standing at the foot of their bed, or in a doorway of the room, just watching them. Some have even reported screams that when they had seen one, but no one else in the house heard the screams. Some reported of seeing a shadow shaped as a person with glowing red eyes. That's the only feature that any of them have ever agreed on, were the glowing red eyes. Some have even reported seeing a dark male in a hat.
Well, yeah, you said that.
And that one is actually quite common. The man in the hat is actually more common than the one in the cloak.
Yeah, the hat man, I read tons of encounters when it comes to a shadow entity, like wearing a hat.
Well, the hat man is often described as being very tall, wearing a wide-brimmed hat and a long trench coat or a cape. And sometimes the hat is described as an old top hat, a fedora, and even an old Western-style cowboy hat.
Well, the ones that I was reading were people who saw this man, was it like in a top hat, and he was like wearing this old-style suit.
Yeah.
But, there's some that say this entity is either all black Well, others will say they, from what I was reading, they're seeing like a partial facial feature with red eyes. And this is the weird thing. It's like, why? Or there's a lot of, no, okay, you got shadow entities with red eyes. You got cryptids with red eyes. What is with the glowing red eyes? What is the significance for that? Some people say it's evil, but maybe it's not. I think there's something about that. There must be some kind of connection, because why are Dogman having red eyes? Why are Bigfoots having red eyes that emit, its own light or whatever? And now you have these shadow entities.
And they always associate those glowing red eyes with evil, which it may be. I don't know.
Yeah, we don't.
There is this website called thehatmanproject.com where they have several people sharing their encounters with this shadow entity, and people talk about their thoughts and theories on what it is.
Yeah. They're basically sharing their own personal encounters on there. So
right, and
you guys should go check it out.
And the thing of it is, though, and this is what gets me, some of the people on there think that it's a guardian angel because it doesn't really interact with them or anything,
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I just had an interruption.
Oh, somebody came in the room.
Somebody came in the room. I'm muted and out. Where was I? Some people think that they're guardian angels, just because all they do is just stand there and look at them. Personally, don't stand there and look at me while I'm sleeping, because that's just going to get you in trouble. But it's like
they're more trouble if something's in your house. If it's a living person, you're not going to be like,
well,
hey,
that's true too.
But
I don't like, and a lot of them say that they're just in there just lurking. Just lurking.
Yeah.
Some people have reported being slapped by them. Some people think that they're demons. Some people think that they're just benign. But there have been reports, though, of people seeing these shadow entities that have absolutely no interest in them whatsoever. They'll just go about their business and then walk through a wall or whatever, and it's like the entity doesn't take any notice whatsoever of the living person that's standing there watching them.
Yeah. There's people who report seeing them in the corners of the room, or things floating above their bed, or sitting on their bed, or standing right next to them. I was reading a lot of that stuff, but a lot of people say that's due to the fact that people are seeing this is they call it like sleep I can't talk.
Yeah, there are those that sleep paralysis.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. There's a lot of people who say, well, the only reason why they're seeing that is because of this condition, and it's not real.
I know. These people, that have these experiences where they wake up, but they can't move their body except they can move their eyes.
Right.
But otherwise, that's it.
Yeah, they're like paralyzed and stuff.
Right, and to them, they feel like they're paralyzed. Yeah. Exactly. And from the reports I read, it seems to last anywhere from a few seconds to several minutes. And people in this...
While they're in that state, yeah. It could go from like seconds to, it seems like a lifetime.
I'm starting to get tongue-tied because the interruption kind of threw me off of my thought.
What people interruption? When you got kicked off the internet?
No, when someone just came in the door just a couple minutes ago. Came in the room.
Yeah, came in the room.
But anyway, people that are in this state, they often talk about seeing these shadow entities or the Hat Man. And people talk about several shadow entities standing around in their room watching them or at the edge of their bed. And some of them even report them sitting on their chest. I've read encounters where the Hat Man would sit on someone's chest. People would claim that they could feel the weight of this thing. But according to some sites and to some scientists, that cause this sleep paralysis happens when a person experiences an incomplete transition from sleep to wakefulness. And they say part of the brain process that simply fails to connect right away.
Right,
and
when you wake up.
Right, it's during the REM state where our consciousness is, in their words, set to an off state, in which it makes our bodies in a state where the body just,
shuts
down movement, until other consciousness turns it back on.
Well, what they're saying is basically when you go into sleep mode, the REM state, is what they're saying is our brain shuts down functions of our body, as a protection mode, basically, is what they're saying. And if you wake up too quickly or in a panic or whatever they want to say, that the brain hasn't fully hit on all the switches to connect your consciousness with the body movement, is basically what they're saying then.
Right, and they say that, like you said, that our bodies go into this mode as a form of protection mechanism to keep one from acting out their dreams physical while sleeping.
Physically, yeah. Like,
I don't know about that.
If you're in a dream and you're stabbing somebody, they're saying basically you're not going to act this out because your body shuts down certain things. It's basically what these scientists are trying to say, what and why this is occurring.
And, and they also say that if people wake up too quickly, they experience these hallucinations.
Yeah.
And from hearing things to seeing things that are simply not there, or it's a term that they call hypnomnic, something like that. I don't know. I know I butchered the crap out of that word. And basically, to sum up their stuff, though, I read on different websites that basically when people get into these states, they get fearful. And so they somehow trigger these delusions and
whatever.
So on.
Right.
Yeah.
So basically,
I'm thinking I'm about at the end of my thought.
Basically, what you're saying is they're saying that whatever. Basically, I just don't, I don't know. To me, that's just some people's theory as to why people are experiencing these things, but I honestly don't think that is the answer for all of the encounters. Okay?
No, I don't either.
Maybe it's possible that it may happen to a very small percentage, and that's what it is, like a dream or hallucination, but I really don't believe that every single one of them are having the exact type of same encounters.
Exactly. If I said what I really thought of that particular theory, we'd get censored.
But I think people are, we're on YouTube, I don't think we get censored that much, but I think people are seeing these things only because there's people who are seeing these things fully awake, like I have, in different settings, okay? And they've been awake for hours, and they are seeing them in different environments, and they're seeing them not just by themselves, but by other eyewitnesses with them.
Right.
And they are seeing them, like I said, at all hours of the day and at night. And, I won't say that some of these things are not hallucinations, because I'm sure maybe a small percentage of them can be. And it's also very easy for one's imagination to get the best of them. It's not just ourselves, but our fear can spread to those around us, and it could possibly influence them to start seeing the things that we're seeing in the dark, like fear pheromones. Okay?
Yeah.
Scientists have proven that, human beings are unconsciously detecting and smell these pheromones that are released by others through their, like sweat glands and stuff. And, the smell of fear can actually, it can trigger like a response in your brain when you inhale that pheromone. And the mind reacts to that, and that's been proven because they've done numerous tests of someone's
I believe that a person's fear can spread to other people.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. But that's what I'm saying. The fear pheromone, it's actually a thing that's actually released, and then like not just like dogs and cats and animals and everyone else who can pick up that, but humans are too. We're just unconscious of it. We're desensitized by so many things. But but like what I'm saying, okay, you made me lose my thought for a second. But let's say maybe part of this is, kind of like what it is. Because, like I said, scientists have kind of proven that human beings' minds are reacting to this. So, maybe some of these sightings, like, let's say at a haunted location where there's several people there, and they're kind of getting scared or whatever. So they're releasing these fear pheromones. And thus it might possibly cause and create like a sort of mass hallucination thing. Sort of like, you have like mass hysteria type reactions which there have been events that have been recorded throughout history of, mass hysteria happening to people.
Yeah.
So maybe, possibly, this same thing is happening with some of these encounters. I'm not saying that is, that's what it is. I'm just simply tossing out this thought that people are also discussing when it comes to these encounters. Like maybe when they're in an environment and they get scared, it can trigger their mind to make people start seeing things that aren't actually there. So that's what some people are saying. That's not what we're saying. We're just saying that's one of the things that people are saying.
Well, I read this one article online where these Swiss scientists, while working on it with an epileptic patient, had electronically stimulated their brain, and during that process the patient claimed that they were seeing a shadow person sitting behind them. This shadow person was copying every move they made, and when these scientists stimulated the left side of the brain,
temporal,
yeah, thank you, it somehow messed with the way the brain ability to understand the body, thus somehow creating the shadow being. Now, researchers, of course, are hoping to understand why it is people are seeing these shadow entities by doing these experiments.
So basically, they hooked up these electrodes and stuff, and they were
it's
shooting
kind of
types
like
of electricity,
it's kind of like shock therapy treatment.
But they were hitting certain parts of the brain, triggering certain parts of the lobes or whatever,
right?
Just to try to help this person not to have epileptic seizures, or to kind of understand it more. And while doing this, it made this person see one of these shadow entities copying everything that they were doing. That's interesting,
right?
And creepy at the same time, though, that they can mess with your brain.
And besides sleep paralysis, when people are having these experiences, you also have people who are sleep deprived, seeing these shadow entities. Oftentimes meth heads are having these hallucinations.
Exactly.
People will commonly report seeing a shadowy figures, blurry faces, and tall men in dark clothes.
Well, clothes too, yeah.
And disappearing quickly, stalking them or watching them everywhere.
Yeah.
These people on meth are even prescribed drugs, like schizophrenics.
Yeah.
Are experiencing these things too. But reading and hearing some of these people's stories, it just seems strange that several people will hallucinate the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they do it without the other without them telling each other what they saw at the moment, not until later on.
Right.
And usually identical hallucinations are just not a common thing. These are people who think like meditation.
Well, what you're saying is basically these meth heads, maybe it's not a hallucination if multiple people are seeing the same things, but they're not telling each other, hey, I saw this, until later on. So how can it, maybe it's not just the drugs that's doing it, but maybe they are seeing it, is what you're saying.
Yeah, but there are some people who think that these drugs open our minds to the spiritual realm.
Well, yeah, like meditation. When you're doing meditation.
Like meditation, exactly.
It opens up your spiritual self and to these different levels, or realms, or universes, or whatever.
Exactly.
This is the same thing as drugs. Now, you ever notice how, like, a lot of bars, they tend to have like tons of paranormal activity.
Alcoholics.
No, listen. No, listen to what I'm saying before you jump to what I'm going to try to say. My cat's pounding on the door, so I apologize, but he can just wait till the show is over. But you ever notice, like, a lot of bars or places like bars, they tend to have like a lot of paranormal activity, or people are seeing these shadow beings?
Yeah.
Because there's like this bar, okay, it's in Boston. I think it's like the Stanza Bar or whatever. The employees are always talking about seeing these dark shadow figures standing behind people while they're drinking in the bar. And there's this one waitress, she said, like, one time she felt like someone was standing behind her, and when she turned around, she saw this black shadow float away, like, really quick, and then go into another room through the glass door. And you can, like, Google this place. Actually, you can Google like tons of, you know what you could do? Just type in like haunted pubs, bars, or taverns.
I know,
and you're gonna
there
get like
tons of them.
Yeah, you're gonna get like an endless number of places where people have encountered these shadow entities there. Now, some people say when you take drugs, either, like legal or illegal or alcohol, that it actually lowers your spirit's frequency, like our own spirit energy, our own soul, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And it makes you more open or more susceptible to these entities. And that's why people are seeing these things in so many pubs or places where people go to socialize or dance or what have you. But, when people start to get drunk, they see these things, people are, like I said, like this one bar, they see these shadow beings swarm in around all these people like sharks to drops of blood. I mean, could you imagine being a bartender and seeing these dark shadow entities following people around who are getting drunk? And that'd be kind of creepy. But there's people who believe that these things are feeding off of these people's energies because their levels are so lower. And there's some who say, when the body reaches like a certain state of, I guess you want to say like intoxication, okay? That your soul will actually leave your body because of the state that the body's in. It's like it's too much for that, your spirit or energy or whatever you want to say. That's what people are saying, okay? And I can't say for sure it is or isn't, okay? But you're still attached. It's kind of like astral projecting, okay? But your soul still stays attached to it. But when you're so like blackout wasted, you know what I mean? That's the state what they're talking about. But it stays outside the body during this time, and that's when these shadow entities will enter that body shell, your body, and it'll take it kind of like for a test drive, and it'll do like when these people are in these blacked out states, that's when a lot of people will end up doing like these horrendous acts or rape or murder or like really messed up things they would never do straight up sober, you know what I mean? And so they say that these things hang around these places to feed off of people's energies when they are in these states. And maybe that's why a lot of these meth heads or other drug users, legal or illegal, see and experience these shadow entities as well, because when the body is in these states of mind, I guess, it somehow opens up our mind to seeing these things or other realms as well as it's, because what you're doing is when you're in a certain state of like thinking, or you're sending out like what they're saying. I'm not saying I'm saying this is fact, but what they're saying, you have like lower energy frequency that attracts these beings or entities or whatever you want to call them. I mean, I don't know. This is just like a thought that I've had and others too, and I'm sure I could better explain this than I am now. But we've been talking for like an hour and a half. But when you're in this state of mind, you're more susceptible, and you're much easier for these things to influence or probably even take over or attach themselves onto. And there are some there's some who say that these are like inorganic entities that live in these different parallel gosh, come on, words get out of my mouth, dimensions, and that they feed off of our emotional energy along with any other chaotic events that's occurring. That's what people are saying. So
you're saying that some of these shadow entities are like psychic or energy vampires.
Yeah, that's what some people.
Our energy is what draws these things in.
Yeah, that's what some people are saying. When it comes to their theories, their beliefs, and their opinions, when it comes to these shadow entities and why they're seen in certain environments, especially a lot of places where people are doing drugs or drinking, or why a lot of people who are on medication tend to have these encounters too, because it kind of is opening up your mind to these things, and it's kind of lowering your levels, which puts out some type of vibration that attracts them in more, but because energy being our thoughts or emotions, it gives out like negative energy. So our thoughts and our emotions are like this cat's driving me nuts. I don't know how loud it is for you guys, but it sounds like he's punching it.
I can hear him.
It's like having a boxing fight with the door. But what they're saying is like our thoughts and our emotions are like energy, and it puts out like this vibration that attracts something of that similar level. So if you're negative, you're going to attract lower level negative type of things, be it human or spirit. And if you're more positive, then you're going to have more different type of entities, I guess. This is what people are saying and talking about.
So these things thrive on fear, which makes sense.
Yeah.
why a lot of people see these things in sanitariums or insane asylums or even prisons.
Yeah.
Because of the wide range of emotions and violent things that have occurred in these places.
Well, yeah, because a lot of things happen in these hospitals or asylums or prisons, like bad stuff, dude.
Yeah, so they're like parasites.
Yeah.
And they prey on the weak and the sick.
Yeah.
I read many encounters where people talk about these things influencing people to hurt themselves.
Yeah. That's why, like, you know how a lot of these old insane asylums where, you know, people were just left in their own filth and everything else, and and these nurses and these people who work there and stuff, they do talk about seeing these entities there, or, you know, where a lot of people are, you know, because the people who end up going into insane asylums or prisons and stuff have gone through a lot of experiences, and some of them are druggies and stuff, and maybe they opened these doorways to these things, and then you can't close the door anymore because you opened your mind to it, you know?
Yeah.
But, you know, energy can either be positive or negative. So I guess what you meditate on, you attract, like I'm saying, both in the physical realm or in the other realms, is what these people are theorizing about to kind of basically summarize it up. So, you know, if you have positive thoughts and actions, you're just gonna have more lighter energy around you and less chaos. While if you have like dark thoughts or negative actions or feelings, then you're gonna only attract and feed this dark energy, essentially. Now, I don't think all of these incidences can be attributed to that. That's just some people's theories. But, you know, you and I, we can't say for certain, like, everything we have mentioned tonight is fact and to drink, like, the Kool-Aid. You know what I mean?
Right.
But these are things that people have said to have experienced and have talked about when it comes to what and why these things are. You know, I don't know. I can't tell you.
Some people say these shadow entities are just spirits or ghosts that manufacture sometimes in this way. Manufacture, that too. And that these are spirits who choose not to cross over. Now, others say these things are demons and dark spirits, while others believe them to be, like I said before, some sort of guardian angel. Mm-hmm. They claim that nothing ever happened when they would see these things, and that they only appear to be watching and they feel no fear. Yeah. Others claim that in the beginning, when these entities first began appearing, they were benign and only seemed to be lurking and watching, and sometimes would even wave at them.
Yeah.
But later on, they would attack them or throw things at them. And then there are those that say they were attacked from the beginning, that they were bitten, they were scratched, they were even hit. Some even claim that they were thrown across the room.
That's not how do you hallucinate yourself being tossed about and then
exactly how do you hallucinate that?
Yeah.
You know, so are they demons or angels, or are they just pissed off?
Maybe they are pissed off.
I am not sure if I would go as far as to say they are angels, which I know I wouldn't. It just seems to me that an angel would not be as black or even blacker than night.
Yeah.
And you have some people who say they are these shadow entities that wear hats and suits are aliens or MIB. Others say they are just a bleed through from another parallel or universe next to ours. And since they are not within our laws of physics, is why we only see them as shadow beings.
I had to let my cat in. He was starting.
I wondered what happened to you.
Yeah,
got to you, didn't he?
Yeah, I felt like he was about to, you know, Hulk out and bust down the door, like my food's in there. You know.
Well, wait a couple seconds. He's going to want back out.
Well, he can just wait. So I missed basically. I think you were saying something about aliens, or I don't know what.
Well, I was saying that. Well, I was saying that, like I said, you know, it just seems to me that an angel would not be as blacker than night.
Yeah.
And that there are some that think that they're either aliens or MIB. And there are some, and there are some that just think that they, you know, come from another parallel universe, and since they're not within our laws of physics, that's why we only see them as shadow beings.
Oh, you're basically interdimensional type of
right.
thing.
exactly.
I read that theory as well a lot, But I was also read where people say that they are people who are like astral projecting, or they are astral entities, or time travelers, There was people who were some of them were saying where these things were they're created like tulpas, thought forms, when a dark event or a tragedy occurs, and all the negative energy, it creates and manifests this thing into a being or a spirit or entity, and therefore was never human, it was never alive. It doesn't exist here nor there, but it's sort of like somewhere in between as well. But I think it's interesting that some of these people are saying that the Hat Man is like Alien or Men in Black,
Right. But, whatever
can I finish my...
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were done.
I was in mid-conversation with asking you a question. You're like, I don't want to listen to your question. Shutting you down. No, I'm running the show, so you have to listen to me.
Okay. Please, by all means, proceed.
No, but you're saying that these people are talking about these things being aliens or Men in Black. So what are they saying, that these things are like projecting is it like they have like a cloaking device and that's why you only see them in
I have no idea
form?
But that was what I got from them, that they were like projecting this cloaking device that just made them appear as well, or even coming from a parallel dimension. It's like I said, they're not subject to our laws of physics.
No.
So, and maybe when they come into our
Sorry, that no wasn't
universe,
to you. It was to my cat, who's about to knock a whole box off a shelf. I guess he's mad because I didn't let him in right away, so he's like, I'm going to dump this box of stuff on the floor. See
that's
how
what
like
cats
that?
do. They throw things on the floor.
That's their way of flipping you off.
But maybe it's because if they do come from a parallel universe, maybe in our side of that, on our side of that, they just appear as shadows.
Yeah. I think the Men in Black thing is kind of interesting, that they would think that these
I thought so too.
Interesting theory, but it would make me want to know, okay, were all these things more solid, like people then, for them to try to say that's what it was. But I don't know. Whatever
these things are, they all seem to vary in shape and size, and even in actions, really. If you have those that they call the watchers or the lurkers that seem to observe us but don't necessarily interact or try to let us know that they're let their presence be known. Yeah. I'll get it out here in a minute. You have the ones they call the stalkers, and these are the things that live in the wooded areas or nature. They're seen watching and following people in the woods, and they oftentimes mimic the person's movements. Mm-hmm. Like when the person stops, it stops, whatever, Yeah. And except unlike a person, they don't make a noise. They don't crunch leaves or branches. They're just quiet. You have the ones they call the predators, who like to attack or create fear in people. I guess
I want to see a predator one. Okay, so far the ones I've seen are just kind of like doing their thing.
Yeah,
so
really.
I'm cool with that. I don't want one that's attacking me ever.
No, I hear you.
But the ones that are creating things or attacking people, they're trying to cause fear in them. So
well, that's
it.
They're creating fear.
That's fear.
They're creating fear in people, and I guess those would be the ones that like to feed on that negative energy that that's giving off that fear.
Yeah, so they're purposely messing with you to
exactly.
And
then you have
environment for them to eat.
Yeah, and then some say that there are some who are just omen, that they appear right before something bad is going to happen. Like a tragic accident. Event or even death.
So it's like kind of like the Mothman, like they say the Mothman appeared as a warning for things before something would happen. So some people are saying that sometimes when they see a form of the shadow entity, that not long after somebody died, like the nursing homes and things like that, these nurses and everybody talk about seeing these things in hospice standing around. It's almost like they're waiting to help them cross over. Or maybe they're feeding on them. Who knows? I don't know. We don't know. We're just talking about everything that people are encountering with these things. They basically kind of say it's like a grim reaper, I guess. kind of like at the same time, but not. Maybe some of them are. I don't know. We don't know.
Well,
We're not.
all across.
God or.
We just don't know. All across the world, people are seeing these shadow entities for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Some people have a negative encounter while others don't.
Yeah.
And just because something can cause fear in someone doesn't mean that the spirit or the shadow is evil or a demon.
Yeah. That's the thing that kind of, it's kind of like a lot of people are like, oh, all these things, it's evil. It's demonic. Well, why is it demonic? Just because you're scared doesn't mean that it's a bad thing.
Some people who, this may be a bad example, but it's the only one that popped into my head. That's like these people, they go into these so-called haunted houses, for the first time, because they want to see a ghost.
Yeah.
And if they happen to encounter one, even if it's a residual, they get scared, they pee their pants and they run. It's,
bring it extra
it's basically the same thing. It doesn't mean that entity they saw is evil. It just means that we're afraid of it because they saw something.
Well, yeah, fear is just a natural human reaction.
Exactly.
That a person has to the unknown. So because you see something and it causes fear in you, which is you created that emotion within yourself.
That's right. And maybe we're not ready to fully understand who or what these things are, or what they represent, or where they come from, until...
Maybe we're not supposed to know these things. Maybe it's not until you reach a certain level, or who knows,
Exactly, intelligent beings, shape-shifting demons, lost souls are just figments of our imagination. Who knows what's the real truth and what isn't?
The shadow knows.
Yeah, he knows what evil lurks in the heart of men.
Yeah. That radio show. Every time I hear people talking about the shadow.
That's a Modi Odie.
I know, but there's a lot, a lot of people like classic stuff,
Oh, I do.
And stuff, but, when we're talking about the shadow and you hear people talking about the shadow, that catchphrase always pops in my head. The shadow knows, But seriously, yeah, I believe, people are encountering things. I really do. I don't think it's just all the same kind of entity, but I think it's several different kinds. Sort of, kind of like how we have different races of humans and different types of species of animals. I'm sure maybe it's a possibility that it's the same thing when it comes to these shadow entities. Maybe they're all the same species, but there's different variations of it. Just like, there's different types of human races and there's different types of dogs, but it's still a dog or it's still a cat, but there's a variation of these. So maybe it's the same thing when it comes to these shadow entities. And just because you don't see something full on, but only catch like a glimpse of it, it doesn't mean it's not there. Sometimes people have like rodents or bugs in their house, and you think you see something out of like the corner of your eye, and when you turn to look, it's gone. But like if you set up like a mouse trap or a sticky trap, you catch one in it, and then you weren't just seeing things, and that in fact it really was there. So maybe like these shadow entities, it's that same type of concept. Except for we don't have a sticky trap to catch them.
No, that's true. But one of the things I found...
You need like, what do you call it? The Ghostbusters. They have one of those... What was that contraption that would suck the apparitions into their little box?
Proton pack.
I know. People would be mad at me for not knowing. I'm sorry. But, maybe...
Well...
But I'm just saying, we just don't know.
Well, one of the things I found interesting is that most of the reports state that the people who first saw these... shadow entities out of the corner of their eye. And then when they looked in that direction, whatever it was they saw was gone. Now, this has never happened to me. Usually when I see things out of the corner of my eye, when and I look, whatever I see is not paranormal. And
not everything you see is not paranormal?
No, I mean from the corner of my eye. Like usually I see these things, entities, whatever, apparitions or whatever, when I'm looking at them straight on. And it's like I said, usually when I do catch something out of the corner of my eye and when I look at it, it's still there and it almost never turns out to be something paranormal.
Wait a minute.
And
so you're saying when you are at a place, I'm kind of confused at what you're saying. Because
when I'm on an investigation, you know how some people, they say that they'll notice something paranormal out of the corner of their eye, and then when they look at it, it's gone. Like these shadow people. A lot of people say that they first notice them out of the corner of their eye, they'd see something go, and then when they look, it's gone.
Right. And you're saying when you see something out of the corner of your eye and you look and it's gone, it's never paranormal for you?
It's almost never paranormal.
What is it then that you're seeing?
Well, something might catch my attention, I mean, it might be a trunk, or it might be
okay. So
something there in the corner.
The things that you always catch out of the glimpse of your eyes is never paranormal, but the things that you're seeing
almost
dead
never.
Sight on
I didn't say
is always paranormal.
Usually when I see an apparition, it's never out of the corner of my eye. It's always I'm looking at it straight on.
Yeah, dead sight at full on.
Right, exactly.
I got, at first I was kind of confused, but because I'm like, I've seen you, you've shared photos of things that you've caught, and you've talked about seeing things all the time. So I just wanted to make sure you were not saying that you've never seen anything paranormal, but you're just saying you always see things.
I seldom catch it out of the corner of my eye. Yeah. I usually walk right into it face to face.
Yeah.
And it's like I said, I'm no expert, I mean, I really do not even know anything about shadow people. But from all that I have read and the videos I've watched, I would say that they are not to be trusted.
No, it's, a lot of, what I mean? A lot of people seem to be harassed. But like you said, it starts off benign. And then as time goes on, a lot of people seem to have horrible things. But the things that I've experienced, I haven't had any negative results from it. I mean, I haven't been attacked or anything, so maybe there are different types of things that I'm seeing, but I've seen it in different environments too. And like I've seen when I'm out in public, whatever, I've actually seen these things as following people around too. So I don't know.
I've seen apparitions following people, but I never associated them with shadow entities, because usually when I saw the entity, I could tell you everything about it, just standing there looking at it. I can tell you its hair color, what the hairstyle is, the color of the dress, or what kind of dress it is, or maybe a suit, or tell you if it's got a beard or a mustache or whatever, long hair, short hair, whatever. The things that I have seen that were dark, it's like I said, I never associated them with shadow people. I just assumed they were apparitions that were either forming or dissipating.
Mm-hmm. But maybe when they're trying to project themselves, they go through, and maybe it depends on how. I mean, some people say, well, the longer they've been out of the body and
everything that
form, let me finish my thought. You keep cutting me off in my thought. There's people who say the longer they've been dead, the more their spirit's able to do things, where when they're brand new, they can't. So maybe the newer ones can only come in as shadowy forms, where other ones can be full on, like what you're talking about.
No.
No?
And
what'd you say?
I said, yeah.
Oh.
I said, yeah. And they were talking about attacks. Everything that I had been attacked by was invisible. That it was something that never materialized. Like I remember me telling you that one time where whatever this was, I went into this one place, and right in front of me, this entity told me that I'd better get out of there or I was going to get hurt. And I could even feel its hot breath on my face, but I never saw the entity.
Hey, remember when I was Cheney Mansion? Because you're kind of talking about that place. What was that spider entity? Was that a black
there was that. That was something
that.
There was an entity in the basement. It had the body of a spider and the face of a human.
No, was that all black or?
No, well, it was black, but it wasn't a shadow. I mean, you could tell what it was. I didn't see it in the dark.
Well, yeah, but some people see the shadow man as a solid figure. Maybe that spider baby. Whatever.
I could not classify that.
Like a shadow entity.
I could not classify that as a shadow entity because it was just too
weird.
Plain.
Oh.
No, well, it was weird, but it was too plain, and that was something that some people had disregarded, the rule about Ouija boards.
Oh, yeah.
They opened up a portal with a Ouija board because they didn't pay attention to the rules. And
it's not like they're listening, so don't get mad at the viewers. They're not the ones who did that at that place.
That's true. But anyway, but that thing was just so plain. I mean, that was not in shadow form. That thing was plain. I mean, you could see that thing.
I would have taken a shotgun and shot it.
I've been pushed downstairs by invisible hands. I have been hit. I have been poked. I have been slapped. I've had things thrown at me. I could sit here all night and tell you things that happened. But every time it did, it was by an invisible force. I had never
technically, you don't know what pushed you on the stairs because you were facing a different direction. And how do you know that if somebody else was there at the time, which they weren't, because you were cleaning the place or something?
Because there were people that were about 3 or 4 stairs behind me, and they said that I lurched forward like something had pushed me, and I felt it.
That's right. I forgot about that.
And I felt the push.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Hopefully, thank you to the viewer who requested this. I'm hoping that we bantered about a wide variety of things when it comes to the shadow entities, and of course us sharing our own personal experiences as well tonight and stuff. And for those of you guys who are listening, don't forget to go check out the 2 links that we're going to end up putting in here with the Queen Mary and the Myrtle Plantation where we had Laces out on it, because he has more photos and videos of these shadow entities. And like the Myrtle Plantation, like we were talking about, we have a video on that show where he shows a full body, basically the torso and up of this I don't even know what do you call it, shadow entity walking across the porch, and you can see it in the video. It's like it hits about the 30-second mark, but it's so creepy, Yeah. So you got,
but it's an awesome video.
Yeah, and he has tons of other evidence when it comes to the Myrtle Plantation that him and his family got when they were doing like a little small investigation, and also the Queen Mary one. He's got tons of other photos and EVPs. So go listen to his story. Go listen to his encounters and experiences, because he'll go more in detail about these things and stuff. But why don't you go ahead and let everybody know what the heck we're going to do?
I want to thank Native Earth Lady and Richard, our mods, for doing a fantastic job tonight. I want to thank all of our listeners for coming in and listening to us, and those that didn't come in to chat. I want to thank Raven for a really good show tonight. We'll be back November 21st, 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. Now, we don't really have a subject right now, but we're batting around a couple. It's a viewer's request, I can tell you that much. And in a couple days, we will post it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and thank you for coming. Please subscribe to us. Give us a like. And please share us with others on any social media site you may be a part of. And thank you, everybody, for coming in tonight.
Yeah, thank you guys all for coming. If you want to get a show reminder, you can either click on here on YouTube next to our Spooky Raven name, or you can go to our website, anythingbutordinary2.wix.com/anythingbutordinary, and you can sign up for, an email reminder for when we have our shows. Or you can, you can even contact us there and banter with us. Share us your own personal experiences, thoughts, or theories, or a show topic. If you have a show topic idea, send it to us.
We love getting show topics.
Yeah, because sometimes we get things that we don't even think about, and then we get totally engrossed in like researching it. And you're like, oh, we can't wait to talk about this one. And if you we used to do like a monthly thing where we had, since we started out like 4 years ago, where we used to do like paranormal talk, where we invite you, our listeners, to come on and share your own photos, EVPs, and encounters. So if there's somebody out there who wants to come on and share their stories with our viewers and everything else, contact us. We'd love to have you guys on. Thanks again to the viewer who suggested shadow entities. It's one that we were interested in, only because I had a ton of different.
I learned a lot of things from this one, stuff that I never even thought about. So thank you to the listener who sent that one in.
Yeah, for sure. And me and Speaky, we're not experts. We're just two friends, just like the rest of you guys. We've had encounters or experiences, and we come on here looking for other people just to, converse with and bounce ideas and stuff off. We're never here to persuade you guys to think one way or the other, but basically we hope we bring a wide variety of the subject and lay it out and leave it up to you guys to decide. But we'll see you at our next show, and everybody have a great week.